Screen printing full-color prints with extreme detail can actually be easier than you think with Green Galaxy's new AF4 4-color process inks. In this instructional screen printing video, we'll walk through printing films and screen printing these new 4-color process inks. With the right process and tools, 4-color process printing is actually not much different or difficult than printing a 4-color spot design. As you can see from the art, when printing 4-color process prints, you're typically working with high detail. That's why I like using water-based when printing with 4-color process inks versus plastisol. Water-based inks tend to hold more detail because they are thinner than plastisol inks and can be printed through higher mesh screens. This allows you to achieve a higher LPI dot as well as less ink buildup on the back of the screen. Also, since the water-based ink is wet, the wet-on-wet printing and mixing of the halftone dots to create the 1.6 million different colors in the 4-color process color gamut naturally blends together well. 4-color process printing starts with the right art designed for the right background. 4-color process inks are transparent by nature and are meant to be printed wet on wet to achieve the color detail. This lends itself primarily to prints on white or light pastel backgrounds. The art should also be full color and raster in nature. Think of art that is naturally created from a photo, hand-drawn illustration, or computer-rendered design. The background of the art should also be light, as the background of the art typically dictates the canvas color.
The main tool I use for this type of color separation on this type of full color artwork is Photoshop. Photoshop is a raster separation program that allows you to split your screens into channels that allow you to print one color at a time, CMYK, and allow you to print one color at a time, YMCK. Now, the most important part of properly printing your films in Photoshop is proper color profiling. A color profile matches the separation in Photoshop to the color of ink and the mesh of screen that you're printing on the press. And our color on press is very dark. In this case, we're going to our support.screenprinting.com library and looking for 4-color process color profiles. We're going to be downloading the Green Galaxy 4-color process color profile from that website. Once downloaded, we always want to start with our image in RGB mode. You want to optimize your image for separations in RGB mode. This image is bright, looks great, and is optimized. To load the color profile, go to Edit and Color Settings. Now simply go to Load. Find your AF4 process color profiles and load them. You'll notice that after we load the proper color profile, our image is already becoming lighter. Now that our color profile is loaded, we can go to Mode, CMYK Color Separations, and view our separations. There's our yellow, magenta, cyan, and black. You'll notice these are a lot less saturated than the previous monitor color profile color separation. Now that our color separations are loaded, it's time to print our films. There are a few things that you want on your films in order to print them. First of all, you always want to make sure that you have center crop marks and possibly registration marks. Secondly, you always want your labels on. This tells us what color the film is. And finally, I highly recommend adding your calibration bars. Calibration bars allow us to see what halftones we're actually exposing to the screen mesh and adjust accordingly. Finally, we go to AccuRip and load our LPI settings. Typically, we print 4-color process plastisol with a 55-line LPI, but in this case, we're printing with a 65-line LPI. We're using the flamenco method of halftone printing, which is singular dot angles at 22.5 degrees, which is the default in AccuRip. To maintain this detail, we're also printing on high-end ring-spun cotton shirts. Once everything's set up, we simply hit print our films, and now to expose our screens.
For our screens, we're using water-resistant emulsion, along with cryoprep for long-run production of water-based. We're coating our screens with the sharp side of the scoop coater, flipping the screen between coats and doing a 2/1 coating method to get good penetration of the emulsion into the mesh. When exposing your screen, you want to make sure that you capture all the halftones in your print. This is where the calibration bar comes into play. After your screen is exposed and dry, look at the calibration bars under a loop in order to ensure all your halftone dots are exposing. If they're not exposing on the calibration bar, they're not going to expose in your image area. If you're not capturing the detail, either lower your LPI or adjust your exposure time so you're able to capture the detail on those bars. When it comes to printing 4-color process, proper registration is key. So make sure all your dots line up, all your cross marks line up before taping off your screens. Off contact is not as important with this type of printing because the ink is so thin and is printed wet on wet. A small off contact of 1/16 works just fine. Once registered, it's time to start printing. The Aurora Force AF4 inks have similar consistency to all of our other Green Galaxy inks, such as pitch black, and for the most part are printed the same way. You can pull or push the ink when printing with AF4. However, after each print, it's important that you flood the screen so the image area does not dry out, since this is water-based ink. I personally like pushing these prints more because I feel it controls my squeegee pressure and angle and provides more consistency print to print. You also want to be careful not to gain out your ink, which typically can happen if too much pressure is applied or your squeegee angle is too low. This will muddle up your detail and cause color saturation. When printing, it's good to use the same print order and print method. If you change things up, make sure to take good job notes so you can replicate this work for a future run. We print 4-color process light to dark, CMYK, using 2 passes for each. If you find that one color may need more or less saturation, you can change the number of passes. Be sure to replicate this in your job notes. The AF4 inks print extremely well wet on wet because they are water-based. Check out the detail and color we get out of the AF4 ink. It's also good to note, because of the type of detail and the ink that we're printing, it's best to print on high-end ring-spun garments versus low-end carded cotton garments. A better quality shirt equals a better quality print. AF4 inks feel great, feels like the shirt, hold amazing detail, and can also be printed on light pastel garments. The best part of AF4 inks is they provide all the printer and eco-friendliness of the rest of our Green Galaxy water-based line. When you're done printing, save as much ink as you can and clean up the rest with water. Check out our new line of Green Galaxy AF4 4-color process inks available on screenprinting.com, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more advanced videos on 4-color process printing.